This is Eric Wayne with United Realty Group. How are you? I'm going to go to the Association of Business Brokers that I belong to. It's called the BBF, the Business Brokers of Florida Association. I'm in the top 5%, so I'm one of those guys. I have more buyers and sellers probably than the bottom third of the group there. I'm a top producer. I'm an award-winning producer. I'd like to discuss what you have that you're considering selling, give you some rough idea as to what the valuation might be, to show you what the solds have been. When we're trying to value a business, we look at the solds to find what has sold most like what it is that we're trying to sell. Comparables or the comps to the subject property. This would be our subject property or subject business in this case. And we would try and, identify, something similar in the way of type of industry, recently sold, the gross, the net, that kind of a thing. And then we can give you the average days on market, the average down payment, the average rent, the multiplier for the adjusted net. I'm going to get into all of that. We would love to assist you. I have a team. I belong to two associations also, the Miami Board of Realtors. There's another 60 or 70,000 agents in addition to the Business Brokers Association that would all know about this particular business that I have for sale, because I would package it properly and make sure everyone has the proper marketing, and they would know what we're doing. We understand what it is to the best that we can at the moment. I get an idea as to what it is that you do, what you're charging, where you are. All very, very helpful information. Then go on to the association website, which I spend most of my days on because we, talk to clients all throughout this. So here's the BBF, the association. I happen to have one of the larger teams. We're in the top 5% of all business brokers in the state, which is the top 50 or so, top 40 maybe of top producing agents. We're all full-time at this, and I'm spending like 50 grand a year promoting my listings. I'm what they call a listing agent, and I work with owners, and I pretty much only work with the owners that hired us to get their business sold. I try not to get involved with other agents' listings. Sometimes, it's just easier to work with the clients that hired us directly. But we can talk about that if you'd like. I specialize in this kind of a sale. So I could go into active listings. I could go into buyers that we have in our network. What's most relevant here is if we're trying to find a valuation for the basic information that you gave us. Now, I don't have a P&L statement which would tell me what kind of gross you're doing, so I can't really add that to the equation here. But 275, that's really what people want to know. They want to know, what is the horsepower of a business? I want to see if I can find something in your category similar, what multiplier maybe we can work from. Now, I did spend a few minutes on this before I decided to record this. Let me show you what's in this database. Okay, I like to show clients that. First of all, 22 years the association is, and we have 23,739 sold businesses in 22 years. So that's over 1,000 businesses a year. First, you have to get the clients, and then you have to have all the financials and the cooperation of the owner, and you have to have staying power and the marketing budget and all of that, and cooperation from your peers. So there's a lot that goes into these solds. I mean, it's many, many, many people involved with actually getting these sold. What I want to do is I want to go into your related industry and just focus in on that. I just wanted to show you what's in here. Okay, when you say restaurants, there's a third of them. The third of the active listings, maybe, 300-400 of them are actively for sale restaurants, get a huge amount of restaurants. So those are the solds. So now I want to show you, if I can, the subcategories that I can actually narrow it down from. This is all of the actives and solds headings, the subjects or the types of businesses that we could be looking at. But obviously we want to focus in on what pertains to you, which I believe is medical related, and then the subcategory of substance abuse. I don't want to show you all medical related. Furniture doesn't come into it. Medical marijuana doesn't come into it. None of this comes into it. So we're going to just look for the moment at substance abuse, just the broad heading of substance abuse. I'm not going to plug dates in, although if you want me to go further, I certainly can, because I could find things. There were 7 of them that I found, and the oldest one was from 2004. So that's not really going to be, relevant. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, what happened in 2007 to current, okay? So let's do it that way. And I'm going to leave till today as the current. I'm not going to put adjusted net. I'm not going to get into any of that. We're just going to see what comes up. And I'm also going to do with comments. We have 5 that we can actually look at, all right? I'm going to sort them by adjusted net, this being the smallest one, and then the adjusted net goes larger. I'm going to do a calculation of the ratios, and I'm going to try and give you some numbers to work with. As business brokers, this is the most critical number that I feel is most important. The sold price, so that means the actual contract price, would actually, you could start at any number you want. You can ask $10 million to make, 275. It's never going to sell. The multiplier would be too high. So most businesses sell for 1 to 2 years adjusted net. Some sell for more if there's land, because land gets factored into it, although it's generally sold separately. There's 2 closings. One is the business sale, one is the real estate sale. But if an agent puts it into the system as one transaction with very high assets, the business might have only been at 1.5 times earnings, and then $1 million worth of real estate. If you add that all together, now you're at 7 times earnings. It would throw the numbers off if there's real estate or heavy equipment involved. Here's what I'm going to work with, unless you tell me differently. You can feel free to read these. I think these are going to be our comparables. I went from January 24 of 07 to current. Now, I come up with 1.61. What does that mean? Sold price to adjusted net. Well, the adjusted net, if you're telling me they're, $275,000, I would ask if there was any additional cash. I would ask if there was any additional owner benefits that maybe aren't included or thought of, any non-business expenses that might have been paid or personal expenses that were paid. We can actually fine-tune it a little bit more. And also that 275, I want to make sure that's for one working owner, not 2 owners or 2 people that are leaving, because one person is generally buying the business. And as an agent, I'm expected to normalize it for one owner leaving, one owner buying the business, so that they could see what one owner would actually earn. So having said that, if these are the comps that we decide to compare ourselves to, you can see sold price 2.17, 1 year 1.5. This is just over a half a year, and this one is high. However, your adjusted net here is also very high. So it came out to 1.6. If I remove this bruiser over here, a really big boy, and recalculated it, we would come up with 4 that are actually more similar. You'd come out to 1.36 on an average of 318 days on the market. Okay, so you had asked how long on the market. This is the average down payment. I would recommend that, if that's what the market is doing and they're not paying 100%, full cash, that might be something to consider. Rent was about 8% of these groups. This would be the multiplier. So you would take the 275, multiply it by this number. That would be the average. If you wanted to go a little higher, you can try. If you wanted to sell it faster, I would reduce. It's up to you. We do what the owner wants to do. We don't tell you how much to list it for. However, you don't want to be on the market indefinitely. And some of these businesses that I've seen, they're over 1,000 days because the financials are not right, the down payment request is too high, the ratio of the earnings to the asking price is off. So if we know that this is what works, if we know that 1.36 is what works, and you really want to sell, and this is a reasonable amount of time for you, pick your best agent. I would like to be that agent for you. I have the marketing, I have the experience. I've been doing this since 1989. I'm a top producer. I'm committed to it. We do Zoom meetings. I have a database with over 10,000 prospective clients over the years that I've accumulated. They buy and sell and flip and do all sorts of things. And a lot of them are medical related. So they would be interested to know about this listing. Average adjusted net on sales, you can see that. That's a pretty high number, 53%. Sold price on sales, which is not really a ratio that I ever go by or that most agents go by, but just as a reference. The average adjusted net of this group. So I would say, if you wanted to leave in this bigger boy, we go from 1.36, it goes up to the higher numbers. I think it was 1.6, I think is what we had seen, right? So I can play with these numbers a little bit for you if you'd like, but you're in that range. I would say 1.5 times earnings, 1.6, 1.4, however you want to do it. This video is just to introduce myself, to give you a little background on what I have available. I can fine tune this. We can go through this and see a little bit more detail when you tell me the time is right. The process would be we would send you an intake form. We would need some basic questions to be answered so we know more about the business. We would need P&L statements, some images. We want to get organized and build a package for you. We would take the listing. It's basically a marketing agreement. You're under no obligation to ever sell the business. However, we would be spending our time and our money, so we would ask that we'd be serious about actually getting it sold. High numbers, they don't work. The buyers see this information. The buyers that are working with agents, the serious ones, they see these numbers. So they know that this would be an average, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, maybe 1.5, maybe 1. Somewhere in that range, 1.6. And we go from there, depending on the level of assets, I guess also that'll throw it off as well. Serious people are working with agents now. We want to motivate those agents. So you don't want to cut commissions. I'm going to be bold and say the average commission is about 10%. And we share that with both offices. 90% of transactions are with two offices. By sharing a commission, 5% for each office, and then each agent splits it again within that office. So the broker in each office and the agent in each office share commission. And then we have our expenses, both the brokerage and the agent. We have our marketing, we have our team, we have our business, expenses to actually bring this to market and service it for whatever the duration is. Now, I believe adding one more percentage point on each side, 6% and 6%, which is what I customarily ask for, and what works best, I find, as a top agent. I'm motivating all the agents that would normally bring a listing to a 5%, co-broke situation to my listing. And for that extra 1% on each side, you may get another 10% in sales price. So you're actually buying the market share, which I think is a very smart way to go. When we do the 1% on the listing side, it allows me to be a top marketer with the top budget. That one extra percent for me is 20% more to my commission. So it actually helps me be a top spender. We need to spend money in order to let people know we have this listing, to service it properly, to set up the showings, to follow up on the phone calls, to get all the financials and the production items, and to do all the work that we do. It's not an inexpensive thing to have happen. So I would say we could be very flexible on commission. If you're motivated to get top dollar the quickest, you want to motivate both sides of the sale to cooperate. I'm not going to be beat out on a commission. If anyone lowballs you on a commission, I could do that or better, whatever that number is. However, you're not going to get the cooperation from the other side that 90% of our deals require. People shop commissions, unfortunately, in order to cooperate. So that's something we could talk about, but we're flexible on commissions. Again, a high price and a low commission, underdocumented, you're going to have a stale listing. So we have to have proper documentation, good representation, proper marketing, and a good incentive for people to cooperate. And you'll get a better number faster from the cooperation of two offices, two agents that are all saying the same thing, pulling for you and pulling for this listing to get sold, as opposed to maybe another listing that either has a higher percentage or is easier to sell because the price is lower, the down payment is more attractive or something else, and they just go over there because it's an easier way for them to do it. So anyhow, this is Eric, United Realty. We can do it any way that you like. You let us know what you want as a down payment, what you want as an asking price. Tell me if you're hearing competitive quotes on commissions. We'll match and beat them. I don't have any problem with that. However, me lowering the marketing budget isn't actually helping you, because it's like, a smaller ad in the yellow pages or a smaller ad on Google, you're going to have smaller amount of people looking at it. How does that help you? You want to have good marketing and good representation. My cell is 954-562-2019, 954-562-2019. I could do any search for you that you may want. Let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll be happy to pull it up. If it is a competitive situation, if you are talking to other brokers, make me aware of who they are, what they're offering at the very least, and I will match it and I will beat it. I'm fiercely competitive. This is all I do for a living, and I'd like to think we do it very well. So if you're looking for a top agent with a maximum exposure, flexible, that knows what he's doing, 954-562-2019. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon. I'd love to earn your business. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.